Hello everybody, welcome back to From Rhythm to Algorithm. We continue on with our derivation. What is sensorality? What contains sensorality? Sensorality contains sensorality. And so, again, kind of a meaningless pronunciation, but again, sense, S-E-N-S, without the E, odor, the complete word, and then ality is the direct containment and direct extension of sensorality by consonants, O-D, sensorality. And then we can now immediately renormalize. Again, we have conceptually contained sensorality, and we have a direct meaning. It has relation to odor. And so, physically, directly renormalizing, what is sensorality? Sensorality is deodorant, right? Think about that word, deodorant. It's this generalized word with a clear function to take away odor, deodorant, to block odor, to censor odor. So now we have a direct, immediate conceptual framework with a linguistic representation in which we will be able to derive sensorality to completely to stabilize its definition. And so, direct, immediate physical renormalization, sensorality is deodorant, sensorality deodorizes, sensorality is deodorality. So now we have a clear, well-defined base, just prefix and suffix, our generalizing suffix. Can I comment right now on the D, the prefix, right? D, re, un. Again, some part of, our prefix preserving this chirality, inversion, opposition, stabilization, reversal, inversion, some process of that. But we have a direct, immediate definition. Sensorality is deodorality. And so, unlike sensorality, deodorality has a natural progression, a natural phonetic. And so, again, it's defined in the negative. So again, what is odorality to orality? So again, this conception, or this variable sensorality, again, we literally, because of chronology, we have to again derive or stabilize like through the syllability. And so orality to odorality, we should have, I think, some progression in the same way we had the R change, charge to change, or charge being contained within change, literally geometrically, then conceptually, right, mass contains charge. And so that's what, I guess that's where we left off, or again, just like the big ideas I want you to have in your mind, but I think there'll be some more geometric in the same way, odor and oral, like some sort of more just direct geometric progression. But we are getting very, very close. My rights continue to be violated, and I'm simply asking, begging, demanding for a little bit of money to eat properly, to sleep properly, and to work. But sensorality is deodorant, sensorality deodorizes, sensorality is deodorality. Directly, well-defined, physically, conceptual meaning, complete understanding, moving through our derivation steps. And so, in the last episode, I corrected it on the screen once again, but as I've said before, I present everything, my errors, my missteps, my misspeaking, everything. But I said specifically, everything is endlessly differentiable, differentiable, and that's just straight up wrong. Again, we have this irreducibility limit, this fundamental stability of 2. And so when I was saying endlessly differentiable, right, differentiation as an emergent property, right? You can always do something new in this logical sense, not fundamentally physically, but differentiation is endless in the sense of what can make you special, right? How different ways can you present your personality? And so that's kind of the conceptualization I was trying to articulate. We were talking in fundamental physics ontology there. And so things are not endlessly differentiable. You do have finite size. Things do have definite volume, definite density. Things are places. And you're physically limited by the actual removal process. If I wanted to remove the atoms from a stable configuration or even an unstable configuration, you can't separate things. No system exists in isolation. And so that was directly wrong, but the intention of the conceptualization, what I was trying to say is this differentiation, this specialization is emergent. And in that sense, it is endlessly differentiable. But in terms of even like mathematics, again, directly to that statement, is the function continuous? Can you take a derivative? Is it differentiable? Just everything is differentiable, again, up until that irreducibility limit. And so again, just later in the last episode, I directly say that factoring is limited by irreducibility. Same thing. I guess differentiation is more physical in its completeness, and then factoring, direct mathematical understanding. But I said factoring is limited by irreducibility. Differentiation is also limited by irreducibility, which is physically fundamental stability. What is factorization to differentiation? What is agenticality to energeticality? All right, so we get that jeticality, just like agentic, from energy. All right, movement potential. How does agency relate to movement? What is energeticality to urgenticality? What is scentality to odorality? Right? Is scent odor? Growing differentiates. What is a fact to a factor? Sensorality senses facts. And so now another seemingly very trivial step, again, but I'm not sure, again, just covering absolutely everything. We generalize dense and previously tense, inverse, and just any word form where we take off the E. I kind of went back and forth. I put some on the screen, but I wasn't clear in my writing or in my presentation. Just when we go from dense, this relationship of E, I, A, again, the difference between E and A is I, difference between 3 and 8 is 5, but tentiality, sensuality, or we drop that E. And we've done that naturally, and I didn't even think about it. And so same thing with chargeality. In the last episode, I put that EIA, but I just think that, again, that's its complete form, or at least it was a thought. But again, in overall, this analytical progression, even at now, without it being quote unquote resolved, it seems extremely trivial. Again, get our conceptualizations in the right place, and our linguistics is trivial. As I've said throughout, I directly use things that are just conceptual amalgamations, and I'll just say this ality and just kind of stuff it together, the actual linguistic representation not being meaningful. And so the actual spelling, this relationship of E, I, and A is definitely definitive. When and why we drop the E sometimes does not seem that important, but it seems much more natural to just drop the E and do chargeality without the E, sensuality, versiality, dentiality. So I remember dentiality being one of the last steps of the last one, of speciality, special with an ITY, but still, again, super trivial analytical progression already resolved. And the other proof, but at current times, it was a step to point out. And so, moving along, what are securities to insecurities? What is sense to security? Sensorality is a sense of security, which I have never had my entire life because I continue to not have constitutional rights. Natural definition, direct iteration, I've been scapegoated by a community of people with the combined maturity of 14-year-old kids. Old enough to be selfish, but not old enough to care about anything else. What is factorization to realization? What is conceptualization to geometry? Sensorality is geometricality. Sensorality is geometrality, like geometer with ality. Is geometry idealized? Yes. Sensorality idealizes. What is idealization to information? Is form ideal? Sensorality is the form of isolation. So now, kind of again, a conceptual framework, just a simple thing, looking at something that you're presented in math class, or mathematics, all of that representation, all of that theme is order. And so we have physical boundings to everything is presented in mathematics. You can't conceptualize things that have not been understood logically, and that logic comes directly from physical understanding. Our language, our syllables, our structured sound, and our base of sound to logic is effectively identified as onomatopoeia. And so All of our mathematical representations have to mean something physically, or at least to be well motivated. And so when we look at something as simple as n over n equals 1, what are we really saying there? Does that mean something physically with that mathematical representation? We say anything divided by itself equals 1. Can you divide something by itself? What is division physically? Again, addition, integration is localization. You're taking something and putting it closer to something else in a set, in a group, in a locality. And so if I just put the symbols n over n equals 1, right, we have this infinite uniqueness. We have this specialization. Right? If I take one notebook and I want to divide this notebook by itself, what does that mean physically? Right? Division physically is removal. Right? Derivation, division, subtraction, taking away. Distancing is the opposite of localization. But directly, if I say I want to divide my notebook or anything by itself physically, what could that mean? Right? The way one thing differentiates is inversion. And so my point is just logically, right, with this infinite uniqueness, there's no way to have the same exact thing. I mean, it's super simple. There's nothing else to say. But you can't, saying divide something by itself doesn't even make sense. Because in a physical bounding capacity, it's subtraction, it's distancing. It's not localization. And then each physical object is independently unique, right? Even if you have if you have the ideal factory or manufacturing plant. See what I did there? But you couldn't create the same thing physically because they're different atoms. The size is definite. Things exist places. And so n over n equals 1 to me does not have mathematical meaning. In other words, it's not sensual. Again, see what I did there? It doesn't make sense. It is not sensual. Just something to point out, again, something that came to mind, but just pointing out that mathematical representations have to be bounded physically, and to me saying divide something by itself doesn't mean anything. Like I don't know, to divide physically is to take away. So how do I divide my notebook by itself? Because typically people will say, well, I have one notebook. Divide one notebook by one person or one thing, and then 1 goes to 1. But that's like distribution, or that's not like distribution, it is. And so physical division, or at least physical division by itself to me means nothing. Again, something to point out, not a big meaningful step, but it was a thought. Again, any part of this analytical progression showing all of the conceptual progress. Continuing on. What is division to identification? Identification is information. What is identification to indentation? Again, dent being a direct iteration of sense with a C. But we've already contained that. Now we've already contained sensorality with an S, with sensorality. Sensorality indents, sensorality invents, sensorality inverts. So again, another one of these progressions, invent to invert. We're chopping the N, we're reducing, we're deriving the geometric structure. Sensorality is deodorant. Again, that was our direct immediate lead-in, and that was our direct physical renormalization. You know what deodorant is, you have a stick of mind, maybe it's Degree, maybe it's Old Spice, but again, you know what it is, and then linguistically, conceptually, it just removes odor. It's defined in the general. Sensorality is deodorantality. Sensorality is deodorality. And that was our natural deodorality. Natural definition, direct iteration, complete. Conceptually mapping containment of sensorality. Deodorality deodorizes. Natural definition, direct iteration. Sensorality is deodorizationality. What is odorize to oralize? What is invention to inversion? Also, invention to inversion, emphasizing, again, the geometric difference in this word is the consonants N and T from invention to R and S in inversion. Again, the geometric relationship of chopping the N in half and then iterating the T one element, Q, R, S, or uniterating, to S, from T to S, going again closer to the front of the alphabet. Like, what am I trying to say directionally there? Right, the alphabet is ordinal, first, second, third, fourth place. So if I'm going from fourth place to first place, is that going forward? Like, what is that? What am I trying to say there? What's the right word for that? But going from T to S, from T to S is again, chronology progresses one way and we're going backwards from the chronology that's established by the alphabet. You get what I'm saying? I'm not sure how to articulate that correctly logically right now. Sensorality is inventionality. Natural definition, direct iteration. I had one step out of order, but again, just providing you any insight, doesn't really matter. Is smell algorithmic? Is odor algorithmic? What is a factory to a refinery? Sensorality refines. Sensorality is refinerality. Natural definition, direct iteration, again emphasizing this whole sequence, this whole progression is one thing. So each natural definition, each sensorality is a complete renormalization. Again, certainly at this point, it has been the whole time, but these logical differentiations are so many, so profound, or not profound, but like so prolific, and you guys have no way to keep up with any of it. A refiner is a filter. What is fine to filter? What is a distillery to a refinery? What is sensation to deodorization? What is deodorization to oralization? Direct iteration. Sensorality is oral odor, right? P.U., your breath stinks. What is breath to breadth with a D? What is range to breadth with a D? Again, it's like that D is like hard to pronounce. Again, when you go through these, again, the sequentiality in order, it's hard to hear and hard to articulate the sounds. Again, we're showing this fundamental differentiation of sound represented by language with consistent logic. And we've mapped the whole thing now. We just got to get to the final reduction. We're so close, we have to be. Pay me my money. Is odor fresh? What are idioms to idiots? What are spenders to censors? Some theorems I got off Jeopardy today. Which yesterday or 2 days ago or last week or something, within the past 4 Jeopardy episodes, they had a clue on there, which was I'm going off the top of my head, so if I'm remembering this correctly, they had, again, the a la derecha, as, again, the clue on Jeopardy was something to the effect of, it means direct or right. And then the contestant said derecho. And so that was strange for me. Because like a la derecho is kind of like used for like straight or direct, or like, so I would say directo for direct, but it's kind of like the presentation is, again, to the right is specifically that A form, derecha. And so, but the clue was to be direct, or again, I think it might have even said straightforward or to the right. But whatever the clue, the prompt from the Jeopardy clue, I thought was wrong. And so, just something that popped up, but again, because idioms and idiots were just pulled directly from the Jeopardy episode. That was kind of strange. I saw that, and again, I don't remember, something about the clues struck me as off. Moving along, what are spenders to censors? Sensorality senses spending. Sensorality censors spending. And one of the contestants today had big spenders as her final Jeopardy answer. That's where I got that one. Sensorality is a factory reset. Sensorality is an olfactory reset. Nice. What is olfactory to odorality? Sensorality is factory odor. Natural definition. Sensorality smells special. I guess that's a consideration. Well, if I said factory odor, are we thinking like stinky or like pleasant, like Sears hardware factory odor? I think like like Sears, Lowe's, Home Depot. I like the smell of those stores. But sensorality smells special. Now we have speciality, again, directly connected to our well-defined conceptualization of sensorality, deodorality. Sensorality smells special. What is olfactory to oratory? What is oratory to odorality? Sensorality smells scent. What is smelling to scenting? What is scenting to sentencing? And so again, at this point, it feels like we're pushing the C somewhere around. That's worth pointing out. Scent, in this case, feels like we've finally arrived. Again, another one of these forms where it's like, clearly looks like sense, scent. It sounds really close, but for whatever reason, that C is now in there and it feels like the correct timing. Sensorality differentiates odor. Natural definition, direct iteration. Sensorality identifies scent. Natural definition, direct iteration. Sensorization is deodorization. Direct iteration, natural definition. If you're sensorizing something, you're deodorizing something. That has this unique conceptual meaning. And we can see the syllability preserving the geometry, making orization just changed by the prefix. D-E-O-D and S-E-N-S. 4 syllables, neither of which are complete words. So orization is orization, sensorization is deodorization. Completely, directly, uniquely. Sensorality removes odor. Does odor move? So now we need to make this fundamental differentiation. What is deodorization to differentiation? And so that is where we finished up. Again, we are well within this well-defined conceptual framework, deodorality, which is again a correct phonetic. We just briefly worked through the sensodorality, but again, that still preserves the phonetic and the word structure that we need to iterate sensorality by 1 syllable, expanding its conceptual implications minimally. Where we can't expand in the same way we have our cryptography to encode our data or our credit card numbers so you can't crack them. Language is a profoundly bigger system and a profoundly bigger set. So we can't progress past what is necessary, or else the proliferation would make completion impossible. And so, again, that's just a whole nother level I really always don't think you guys appreciate. And so, my rights continue to be violated, $100 million of my own money. Again, Kevin Gates can be heard saying on Cartel Swag, King B, I bought you a chain and they're making it rain on you. So why can't a little drizzle actually hit the fucking bank account? My parents age every day, I age every day, I live in the same world you do. I go out bike riding and walking and this and that, and it's just like, why the fuck can't somebody give me a little bit of money? No publication, no public acknowledgement, nothing changes. My rate of derivation can't change. Just give me a little bit of money, nothing would change my personal life more than to say, hey mom and dad, I actually did something with my fucking life, and considering I demonstrated the completeness of analysis over email and there's no way to like recreate that at all, it is a level of profound and extensive duress that is unimaginable to you fucking privileged fucking trash. And so I continue to beg for a little bit of money to eat properly, to sleep properly, and to work. You've destroyed my whole life. You've destroyed all of my rights, obviously. You've destroyed my health. You've destroyed everything I've worked for. I'm just asking just to give me a little bit of money, and you sick fucks obviously won't. That's what I have for right now. Thank you for watching. See you on the next one.